keep searching through the darkest day for every soul that's lost or gone. We'll fight until the break of dawn. American justice stands so tall. We won't rest until we found you. For all the lost, both the near and far, you're in our hearts, you're who we are. Through the nights and through the pain, we will say your name again. Every step we take is true as we continue to search for you. American justice stands so tall. We won't rest until there is justice for all the lost, both the near and far. You're in our hearts. You're who we are. We will continue to pray until you're home to stay.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Grendel. Hey, DJ. So, I wanted to... Not quite sure how to make this bigger. Maybe that way. So, when this channel was still down, I had covered on the other one Penelope Mcgowan out of Plainfield, Indiana, being missing. This came out yesterday for immediate release from the Plainfield Police Department. Subject, the runaway juvenile Penelope Mcgowan has been located. The Plainfield Police Department is pleased to announce that Penelope Mcgowan, who was 17 when reported as a runaway and has since turned 18, has been safely located. Investigators located and recovered Penelope during a follow-up visit to a relative's residence. No call was received from the relative she was staying with to initiate or assist with the follow-up. The department thanks the community for its attention and concern during the search. The Plainfield Police Department wishes to strongly remind the public, if you know the whereabouts of a missing person, whether a runaway juvenile or an endangered adult or someone reported missing, contact your local authorities immediately. Even if the information seems minor or if the person has asked you not to tell anyone, prompt reporting can be critical to their safety and well-being. Delaying or withholding information can put lives at risk. Call 911 in emergencies or contact your local police non-emergency line with any tips. Anonymous tips are often accepted. No further details regarding the circumstances of her recovery will be released at this time. So that's wonderful news. She's the girl that left the high school and then was dropped off by her sister near where her father lived. She then went missing. So at least she has been found safe, which is great. Hey, Marie. DJ says, I'm super upset right now. Someone struck my stream when I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, there's several channels that will do that. It's kind of a learning process as to who will strike it and who won't. I don't know how else to explain it. There's fair use, stuff like that. You can put full credit. That often helps. I don't like to let things play too awful long if I don't know whether or not they'll strike me. I also never play someone's live while they're live. Just that. You can always appeal it as well, I think. Right. Oh, DJ, sorry to hear that. There are some messed up people running around. Yeah. And it's a learning process as to who will strike you and who won't. Dr. Phil will strike you immediately, whereas Nancy Grace really doesn't give a crap. So it just kind of depends. And it depends on what you're using their stuff for as well. Hello, Darlene. Hello, all watching 2 lives at the moment. This case is wild. Which one, Darlene? Hello, Cheryl and Kelly. So that was some wonderful news to start out with. That Penelope has been found. Oh, oops. I thought when I was sharing my screen, hold on a minute. Stop screen. Share screen. Share the audio. There shouldn't be any audio, but just in case. Oh, we got 3 case. Yeah. Hi, Sailor Moon. How are you, dear? I was showing videos of what autism is and then talking about a boy that had went missing that had autism, and my stream got struck. Apparently someone struck it for abuse when none of that happened. Who were you playing, DJ? Just jumping in. How are we all doing? I'm good. It's been a long day, but I'm good. Hello, Nova Scotia Health Coalition. How are you? So I wanted to go over, it's been 11 months since Devlin Tait went missing from Ionia County in Michigan, where he was last seen at Carl's Supermarket. And there really is no really new updates since the last stream I did on him. However, his family did post today, and I wanted to share that. So Tamara Host, which is the sister and biological grandmother, posted 11 months today. This was supposed to be posted with the flyer. I didn't see a flyer posted though. I too miss Devlin. What I wouldn't give to have him yelling and swearing at me again, just to have him here with us. It's devastating not knowing what happened to him, not knowing where he is. Hold your loved ones close. We never imagined life to be like this. Missing one of our own loved ones, nothing can prepare you for this. Please, if you know something, if you saw something, if you heard something, then say something. And I can't agree more. And she also posted what Sabrina Host had said, which is Devlin's aunt. Devlin is still missing. It's been 11 months with not a trace of where to look, what happened, or who has him or helped him. Whatever the case may be, please come forward. Our family has hurt long enough with unanswered questions about where he is and why he hasn't come home, why he hasn't contacted the one person he talked to every day, multiple times a day before disappearing. My grandma spent her first birthday without her son, her baby, and I know this is tearing her apart, not knowing. So they also sent a message for Devlin. If you're reading this, please come home. We miss you and love you very much. I would give anything to be able to hear you laugh just one more time, one more pillow fight, one more odd job to do together like we used to. One more. I'm going to assume they meant good, but cry and talking about our feelings like we used to do when we lost your dad, my grandpa. There are so many things I just want one more time, one more of, and it's killing me. Never in my life did I ever think that a missing person could be someone I know, someone I care about. And now that I know just how bad it feels, I wouldn't wish anything on anything, not even my worst enemy, because this is a nightmare that you don't get used to, that you don't just get to wake up from. You think about it daily and ask yourself questions and try to figure out the missing piece of the puzzle. Please, if you're reading this, Devlin, and you're able, reach out and come home. We love you. And I don't see how he's missing this long. I really, without anything, without anybody coming forward, um, without any information really, because like I said, there's really no new updates. Just a video of what autism looks like in different people, like a video explaining different symptoms. I don't know. Sounds like maybe somebody just didn't like your stream to me. Hey Kelly, I commented on the wrong topic. 11 months. Someone needs to talk. Yes. Well, we can talk about Guthrie, but I don't think there's any new updates there either. From SciShow YouTube, I even dropped the link in the chat for fair use as well. So you can drop the link. You can often put up a banner. There's a lot of different things you can do. And then they may just be somebody who strikes. It is sad and it's hard. It's not something, when you go through a missing child, it's not something you would wish on anybody. The not knowing kills you. I am not going to read that, Marie. Wow, 11 months. That hits all the feels. Yeah. I just don't even know what to say. I mean, there's just nothing new. And there wasn't a whole lot to begin with. I've got the 911 dispatch audio. I think it's uploaded on this account. If not, it's on the other one. I'll check after the stream. But there's just really nothing really to go on. Square Bear. Oh my gosh. Okay, so on April 21st, the sheriff's office received a missing person report for Devlin Tait. Several volunteer search teams have been searching the Lake Odessa area, as well as Lake Odessa Police Department and Fire Department. The sheriff's office has and continues to follow up on possible sightings and leads. Devlin may be reluctant to speak with law enforcement due to out-of-county court cases. Devlin was last seen on April 21st. Anyone with any information to his whereabouts is encouraged to contact the sheriff's office at 616-527-5737 or Central Dispatch at 616-527-0400 or the Silent Observer online or at 616-774-2345. Let me grab, I don't know why I didn't think to do this beforehand. Give me just a second. There it is. And this is Devlin's missing poster. He was last seen April 21st, 2025 at 8:21 a.m. on surveillance camera at Carl's Supermarket on the 4th Avenue in Lake Odessa, Michigan. A friend reported tracking his location at 9:28 a.m. near Sewer Plant Road in Lake Odessa, but he has not been seen or heard from since. Devlin has autism and cerebral palsy. His family is extremely concerned about his health, safety, and well being. He was last known to be wearing a black zip up hoodie, white t shirt, blue jeans, and black cowboy boots. He had his wallet, a cell phone, a phone charger, a charging block, and a 3-inch navy blue flashlight with him. Devlin was 18, now 19 when he was reported missing. He weighs 170 pounds, stands 6 foot tall with hazel eyes and brown hair, and has peach fuzz on his face and has a mole on the left side of his nose. So, hopefully, I just don't understand how it's 11 months in and there's nothing new. I've done videos where his family has spoken out. I've spoken with family. I just don't, it escapes me how he's 11 months in and just nothing new. So let's take a look. Remove that. Take a look. One of these, not that one. I had seen earlier his mom had posted on one of these, but I'm not seeing it now. So that post may have been taken down. So that's just them saying thank you. If I remember correctly, the mom had just said I miss, essentially just that she misses him. I just, I don't see how this is so far in. I mean, 11 months, and it's not something that's easy, and it's not something that you get over. I mean, so the other part of this video is how my son Nick's case kind of affects my views on things. If I can find my mouse here. Possibly. So this is my baby. That is Nick. And let me see here. How to do this. Hold on. Oh, that's a video. I don't want videos. This here is my favorite picture of Nick. That was taken at Taco Bell. So let me remove Bubby here. And share screen. Window. No, don't share audio. Okay. So take me off camera. This outfit actually got me called to the school. They had to dress up for Halloween, and this was where we used to live. And he come to me the night before, and he's like, "Hey, I'm supposed to dress up tomorrow for school." And I'm like, "What are you gonna wear? Like, you couldn't have told me this, a week ago?" He's like, "I forgot about it." I was like, "Nick, dagnabbit, you got your mother's brain." And he said, well, do you still have your scrubs? I said, well, yeah, I still have them. He's like, well, I can fit into them. I'll just go as a bloody doctor. I'm like, okay. So we found one of my pairs of scrubs. And we had some fake blood, but we didn't quite have enough. So my son, being the child that he is and wants pure chaos, some of that blood is real in that photo. So well, you can't just have just scrubs. So we found a mask and we bloodied it up. And so then he's like, well, I can take your stethoscope with me. And I'm like, I don't want you taking my, $50 stethoscope with you to school, because he has a brain like his mother and often forgets where he puts things or loses them very easily. And I didn't want it lost because I use it. But I agreed to let him take it. And then we found some latex gloves. And I told him, I said, well, wear these for the day. And I had my pulse oximetry meter. And I said, well, put this in your pocket. Like, if I don't get any of this back, I'm going to be spending $150 to replace everything. But whatever, he needed an outfit for school. So as a parent, you do what you got to do. And so I also sent with him a pair of scissors. Now, the scissors that I sent with him were not kindergarten scissors. They were paramedic scissors. They're very strong scissors, but they're also not sharp. They're curved. I don't know right now exactly where they are. I have them somewhere here still. And I didn't see any issue with it because it wasn't sharp. They were old. They have a legitimate use. Didn't think anything of it. Sent him off to school. I drove him, took him to school. I got back home. And a couple hours later, I don't know, it was around noon, I got a phone call from the school that said I needed to come to the school because there needed to be a parent-teacher conference because Nick had brought a weapon to school. I'm like, what weapon did he bring to school? Like, I'm racking my brain. And I couldn't think of anything because I had dropped him off, and I couldn't think of anything because they had said it was a weapon connected with his outfit. And I was like, I'm the one that put this together, the night before and the morning of. And I couldn't think of anything that I had sent with him that could be considered a weapon. So I went down to the school. On the principal's desk was the pair of scissors. And Nick is sitting there in the chair, kind of slumped down, arms crossed, the most irritated look on his face. And he knew I was irritated because I had to go to the school because he had a quote unquote weapon. And the principal told me that the paramedic shears I had sent with him to school were considered a weapon. I said, excuse me? They're like, yeah, that's considered a weapon. I was like, how are these shears considered to be a weapon? I could not figure it out to save my life where they were coming up with these paramedic shears were a weapon. Well, I thought it might be in that drawer right there, but they're not. So I'm like, I don't understand. I still wasn't understanding. Anyway, I don't know exactly where they're at right now. I'll just have to pull up a picture of these shears. And at this point, Nick and his infamous smile, he just got this look of, these people are crazy. And it's like, how are these? I just couldn't figure it out. Could not, for the life of me, figure out how they thought that what I'm about to show you is a weapon. There's no way that these are considered a weapon. Right there. So let me move this over. These are not a weapon. They're rounded at the end. And the pair I had actually had a little piece that came out at the bottom, to make sure it didn't catch your skin. It's like, how in the world is this a weapon? And I ask them, I'm like, where do you get weapon at? And they're like, well, that's considered a weapon. Okay. I just finally, it was like a 10-minute back and forth with the school. And they finally said, well, he's suspended for 3 days. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And I said, okay, well, me and him are going to go get ice cream and laugh at your stupidity. And at that point, his smirk got even bigger and he audibly started laughing because he knew mom wasn't having it. Yeah, we went out for ice cream. He got a 3-day vacation from school because I sent him with paramedic shears to school. Still don't know how that's a weapon, but whatever. That school system is not very smart. I don't know what to say. So, yeah, that's just how he was. But it was funny. That picture there is actually what we used for his obituary. This was, well, I'll say his wedding day, to be nice. That's actually the shirt I buried him in. I think it's the pants too, actually. I don't know, he had so many black pants. Right? Not a weapon. I even told the school, I'm like, kindergartners have scissors, right? And they're like, well, yeah. I said, and teachers have scissors? Well, yeah. I said, so how are these weapons? Like, I could not figure out for the life of me, by any means, how they thought it was a weapon. But we had a good laugh about it. It was pretty hilarious. He got a 3-day vacation. And him in that stupid hooded pajama thing that he wore. So there's this thing, it's a marble hunt that a lot of different states do. These people who make these glass marbles, they go and hide them, and then you go find a clue, and then you go find it. That'll lead to another clue, and so forth until you find the marble. Well, Nick had come across it, I don't know, on one of his many social media platforms that he had used. He's like, Mom, let's go do this. Like, really? This is what you want to spend our weekend doing? And this is what he wanted to do. So this is what we did. Well, we ended up, and along the way, you find little marbles that really aren't worth anything, or little treasures that aren't worth anything, because with every clue is this little treasure. Well, we ended up finding it. And so he insisted that we take a picture. He was so happy. He was so happy we found that marble. And I still have it, but I don't know what to do with it because I don't need it. But whatever he wanted to do. This is a dinosaur that we're sitting on outside of a gas station. Ignore the fence, okay? It doesn't go all the way around. This thing is open. And he wanted to sit on it and take a picture. So we did, because he's weird. And it was cold and it was windy. I just wanted to stop and get gas. That's all I wanted to do. Nick looked over and seen a dinosaur and said, we need to go sit on it. he talked me into wearing pajamas to Walmart. Don't judge me. He also, in one of our many trips to Walmart, um, put on like a dog muzzle thing, and it was hilarious. Nick was a jokester. Like, he would make a joke out of literally anything. He was good about that. Hey, little black bear. So, anyway, I'm just showing you these pictures so you somewhat have an idea of who he was. Didn't know today would be. So as I'm scrolling through this, we're gonna hit some videos. We'll come back to that one. That was my service dog, and ended up being his service dog for his seizures. And he was in Riley because he'd had several seizures. And so I had the dog with us. He, she come with us, and she'd go to his room, and she would sit with him. And I told him, I said, well, I got to go let the dog out. And this was our first day there. I said, I got to go let the dog out. And so I walked her down, took her down the elevator. She's service dog. She minds her own business. We go out, and all the security guards seen her. And of course, they had to stop and love on her. And of course, she loved that. And so I took her outside, and she, chased the squirrels and was yanking me around and everything else. And we come back in, and we go past the security guards at Riley Children's Hospital. And they stopped us, and they said they'd had a report about a vicious pit bull. And it's like, yeah, she's a pit bull, but she's not vicious. You guys just played with her 5 minutes ago. And they're like, yeah, we know, but we got to stop and talk to you. And so I had to prove, she's a registered service dog, all that good stuff. They let us go. It was no big deal, but it was kind of funny. I was like, really? We were just here. You just loved on her. Like, she just licked you to death. Because whenever she got permission to love on somebody, that's exactly what she did. He decided to wear his pajama pants to go get his license. This was the photo I used in one of his missing posts. We had went, me and him and a friend of his, we wanted to go do an escape room. And if it weren't for Nick, I'd still be stuck in that stupid room. Because I couldn't figure a darn thing out. And I'm not one that likes being locked in anywhere. So I'm starting to spiral, and I'm freaking out. He's like, Mom, it's okay. I got it. We're going to get out of here. It's okay. And I'm like, get me out of here. That's all I'm telling you. You and your friend better figure this out and get me out of this room. And we escaped. I think we had, like, I don't know, a minute or something like that left. Like, it was at the last moment. But if it weren't for him, we would not have escaped. It was, thank God for him that day, because he's such a goofball. He demanded that we have matching shirts, and it's like, really? Really? He was my butt child, okay? I picked up my phone one day, and this was my cover screen. It's like, really? He's like, you're the one that left it unlocked like a retort. And I'm like, really? Really, child? That's where we're going to go with that one? Yeah. He was such a dork. This was one of the posts that I made. And this I posted right afterwards. You guys can read what it says. I do not know how emotional I'm going to get through this. So I guess that's kind of why I'm trying to tell kind of happy stories before we get to this. Hold on a minute. He got his curly hair from his mama. If I do not comb my hair straight or straighten it, it will either be wavy, and if I put anything in it, he's got his mama's curls. For sure. We stopped. He had to go have, I think it was a doctor's appointment. I don't know. For some reason, we had went to town. And of course, he forgot his jacket, so he had to have mine. So I'm sitting there absolutely freezing. And he's nice and warm because he's got mom's Carhartt jacket on. And we go to Burger King, and he's like, we need to wear crowns and take a picture, take a selfie. Like, Nick, I am in my 40s. I am not wearing a crown in Burger King and taking a selfie. Yes, you are. As you can see, who won that argument was not me. So we go to take this selfie, and this guy behind us starts cracking up laughing. And he's like, hold on, you guys, hold on. I was like, who is this weird man? And he went and he got a crown. He come back. He's like, okay, now we're ready. I'm like, we're ready? What do you mean we're ready? And so he said, I'm going to photobomb you. And I'm like, oh, Lord. So this was an arranged photobomb that Nick absolutely got a kick out of. Child, crazy child. There was us at the Hoosier escape room. That was his buddy that I call Italy. Now I don't think YouTube would approve of what I would call this person now. We'll talk more about him in a minute. So, those were just a few pictures I wanted to show that I knew I could laugh at and tell a story. Who's the weirdo in the back? I to this day do not know who that man was. I really don't. Um, he was somebody who thought it was hilarious. He didn't, from what I remember, he didn't have family, and he thought it was really cute how Nick and I pick on each other. And so when he realized we were going to do a selfie with crowns, because he had listened to me and Nick arguing over the fact that mom was not going to put a crown on her head and take a picture, he wanted in on the fun. And it was a fun time had with a random stranger who absolutely made my son's day, because Nick talked about that for a long time afterwards. So in November of 2020, Nick hadn't heard from him in a couple days, which was odd. And it was like 2 days I hadn't heard from him, and normally Nick would call me every day. And I get back to that one because I love that picture still. But it was unusual. And I had tried calling him several times. And his phone was just going straight to voicemail, which was odd because I had just bought minutes for it, so I knew it had minutes. And I thought, well, if I don't hear from him by tomorrow, I'll try to get a hold of that person that was in the other picture with him and see if he knows where he's at. And so I did. The next day, I still hadn't heard from Nick. So I called Jerkface and I said, hey, have you heard from Nick? You know where he's at? He hasn't called me in a couple days. Starting to get a little worried because that was out of the norm. So we're like day 3. And he hadn't heard from him. So I contacted the sheriff's department because I was like, this is too far out of the norm for me. Nick and I were connected at the hip. It was unusual. Something was wrong, and I knew it. So the sheriff's department said, well, they couldn't take a report until after 24 hours. I said, well, I've not heard from him. This is the 3rd day I haven't heard from him. I need you to take this report. And they said, call us back tomorrow and we'll take it. I was so freaking frustrated. I was so pissed. But because Nick was 18, or well, almost 19. No, he would have been 19 at that point. And because he was over 18, he can voluntarily go missing on his own. Doesn't have to check in with mom. I'm like, yeah, I know he doesn't have to, but he does. It's like, you're not understanding here what I'm saying. So I went to the town he lived in that night. And I knew some of his typical hangout spots. It is too long. And it's a rule here in the United States that you have to wait 24 hours before you can report them missing. But it's 24 hours depends on who you talk to. Because the police department I went to said it was 24 hours from the time you contact police for them to officially take a report. However, I know another police department that took a missing person report within 12 hours. So it's 24 to make it official, but when that 24 starts, there's no hard and fast line. So I went and I drove around town. I didn't see him. I didn't see his car at any of his normal hangout spots. I talked to several people. They didn't know where he was. And they all told me the same thing. We haven't seen him for a couple days. And the more people told me I haven't seen him for a couple days, the more I got worried. To be fair and to be fully transparent here, my son was known to smoke weed. He didn't do anything harder. He wasn't an IV drug user. My son was a pothead. Which is part of the reason he moved out. Because I told him he couldn't have it here. Because I was not willing to chance my own sobriety with it around. So the night I couldn't find him, I called multiple people. They didn't know where he was. They tried calling him. Nobody could find him. So after officially reporting him missing, I started going on Instagram, and I posted a little bit on Facebook on my personal page. And then I thought, well, I would call. Nick didn't have contact with his dad or his brother at this point in time because of some things that had happened prior. I know many potheads. I'd deal with a pothead over an alcoholic any day, to be honest, right? I mean, it's some people feel weird about it, and the fact that he's a pothead will play later in this what happened. So I called my ex-mother-in-law, and I had tried to call my ex-husband. He would not answer my phone call. So I called my ex-mother-in-law and I said, don't hang up, because I knew as soon as she heard my voice, she was going to hang up. And I told her, I said, don't hang up. I said, Nick is missing. He has been a couple days now. Have you seen him? Her response to me, I have not. I do not care. Do not call here again. Fair. Didn't want to call her in the first place. I just wanted to find Nick. So I knew Nick was active on a couple of the apps. And one of them was Snapchat. So I got on there, and he had not been active for a while. And so he had not posted anything, nothing, which was another red flag for him. So then I went to TikTok. One of my kids, well, adult child, is a pothead, so no judgment. It plays into this story. Sorry. So I got on TikTok the next night. I'd spent the day looking for him. I was driving all over looking for him, because I thought surely I would see him walking around town or with his buddies. I'd see his bike. I'd see his car. I'd see something that led me to where he was. Nothing. So that night I got on TikTok. And at that point I had, I don't know, almost 2,000 followers. And I had some really good friends on there that had some massive following. And 2 of them were live. So I went into one. They were both police officers. So I went into one and I posted about Nick and asked her if she would say something. And at this point, I was just looking to get his name out there, because the police clearly weren't taking it seriously. And she did. And she made a post about it. And so then I contacted another friend of mine, and he had a scent dog and a human remains detection dog. He was a dog handler. And I asked him if he knew anybody around me that could help. And he said, I'll come up and help you. He said, give me a day or two to figure it out. I said, okay. Hold on, let me yell at my dog. He's barking at thin air, which is a little creepy. So the next day, I went out. I was driving around town again looking for him because I thought surely I would see him. He couldn't stay hidden forever. And so then Jerkface, he was at work, and I knew he was at work, and I didn't quite care. I went to his workplace, which was a local motel. He was a front desk clerk. And I went in there and I raised hell. I was like, you are the last one that was seen with him. Where is my child? I'm not effing leaving here until you tell me what happened to my child. He called the cops. Go ahead. I dared him. Go ahead. Call him. I want to talk to him too, because they're not taking me seriously. I'll yell at both of you at the same time. I didn't care. I just wanted Nick home. I wanted to know where he was. Because anytime Nick would be arrested, I would get a phone call. I was the first phone call. If he was in the hospital, I would get the phone call. So I knew, because I had also called both, he was not in jail and he was not in any of the hospitals. My dog is going to drive me crazy. By the way, that's Nick's dog barking. So the police showed up and I ripped into both of them, the officers and Jerkface. And I'm like, I want to know where my kid is, and you're going to tell me, and I'm not leaving until you do. I done told you this. To his reply was, I don't know where he's at. Haven't seen him, haven't talked to him. You need to leave. At that point, they told me I was trespassing, and if I refused to leave again, I would go to jail. And I knew I couldn't afford to go to jail because then nobody would be looking for Nick. So I reluctantly left, and I was probably about 2 seconds away from going to jail, honestly. Because I think I called that cop every name I could possibly think of to call him. Because I was so mad. And I was mad that they weren't taking it serious. I was mad that they weren't looking. I was scared and worried. I wanted to know where my kid was. So I came home. And the next day, I went out looking again. Didn't find him. Come home, and at night, like during the daytime, I was out looking. At night, I was posting. I was on TikTok. I was on Snapchat. I was on Instagram, Facebook. I was on the phone calling his friends, people he hadn't even talked to for a while that I knew of. I didn't care. All the while, the police department was like, we're not concerned. And that changed. Day 7, that changed. And that night, I had got a hold of a former state trooper here in Indiana who was a school resource officer now. And like I had talked to guys, I had talked to Indiana State Police, I had talked to city police, I had talked to county. Like nobody seemed to be worried except for me, including Jerkface. And he said he'd look into it and see what he could find. And so day 8 rolled around, and I got a message from Gary, and he told me he was on the phone with Indiana State Police and that they thought they had located Nick. And that's all he said. And it's like I knew from, I was a paramedic. I worked closely with law enforcement and fire departments. I wasn't, Joe Smo down the street that had no knowledge of anything. And I knew it was weird wording. He didn't tell me, he's dead. He didn't tell me he's alive. None of that. They just think they located him. And that he would call me back. And he did. A couple hours later, he called back. And he told me that they thought they had located Nick alive. Relatively unharmed. And that when they knew more, they would reach out. And I had some semblance of hope at that point. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know the story. And so the police department reached out. They said they had Nick. He was okay. He was being treated for exhaustion and dehydration at the hospital. That they had located Nick in the basement of one of Jerkface's friends. And that he had been there for the week. And I said, I told you guys something was wrong and you didn't want to listen. I had went to the news. And they told me because Nick was technically an adult and he didn't have any special needs, that it was not newsworthy. Got told that by 4 different news sources. Which I couldn't understand. I couldn't wrap my head around it. So I finally got to talk to Nick. I knew he was okay. At least for the most part. He come home and he stayed for a while. And he told me what all happened. And then he said he was going to go back to Terre. He was going to go back to Terre Haute. I said, I really, really don't think that's wise. Like, I don't think that's a smart idea. So, he was an adult. He thought he knew everything. He thought he was untouchable, even though we just went through this ordeal. So when I say I know what it's like to have a missing child, I know what it's like. Do I know what it's like to have a missing child 11 months? No. It would have killed me. I was not sleeping, but maybe if I could get any sleep at all, a couple hours. I wasn't eating because I was busy looking for my kid. And the news finally thought it was newsworthy. Several months later, it was, I've always said about 6 months, but in all honesty, it was pretty close to a year later. Everything seemed to be okay. And then I got a phone call from the hospital that my son was in the ER and that he had been hit by a vehicle. By Jerkface was the driver. And I'm not really reading comments right now, but I will get to them. So I, of course, went up there. He was relatively unharmed. I mean, he had to have some work, but he was all right for the most part. And tried to get him to come home with me. I told him I didn't have a good feeling. I didn't want him staying there. And he told me it was okay. And one of the things, hold on. Sorry, I had to get a cigarette. So, one of the things when he was missing is he had witnessed somebody in his circle unalive somebody else by giving them a hot shot, essentially overdosing them intentionally. And I just had a feeling in the pit of my stomach with what he had told me about when he was missing. And then being hit by a car by Jerkface. It was not wise for him to go back to that area. And I tried to explain this to him. Probably wasn't very effective because I wasn't very sweet about it. And I told him, I said, if you go back, you're choosing the drug scene and these violent people over your mother. And I regret saying that. Because he hadn't been home or, well, back in that town for very long. And I had went up to my brother's house and we were in his shop. And my phone rang and it was a number I didn't recognize. And I had the hospitals and the jails and all that saved. So I picked up the phone. And the only thing they really said at first was, their very first words was, "Is this Nicholas Tuttle's mother?" And I said, "Yeah." And something felt, hold on, let me mute this, guys. something felt off with that. And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, hold on. I said, don't say anything. Hold on. Because in the shop, I don't have great service. Like, it goes in and out. So I wanted to step outside so I didn't drop this call. Because I knew it was something. And it was weird. And I just got, like, that feeling you get as a parent in the pit of your stomach. And so I went outside. And they said, I just wanted to let you know, Nick's in the hospital. And at this point, I hadn't heard from Nick for a couple of days, but we had kind of got into it because he went back. So I was just trying to give him space. I figured he would reach out. And he told me he's been there a couple days. And so I asked which hospital, because there were two in that town. And he told me which one. So I drove through the night. And mind you, it was late at night. It was after dark when I got this call. It was probably about 11 p.m. And the hospital was about 6 hours away. And I drove through the night. And they wouldn't let me in because he was listed as a John Doe. And visiting hours were closed. What the fuck ever. So I had to wait till morning, which was only a couple hours. I didn't feel like fighting with the hospital because it just wasn't in the right mindset to do so. So the next morning I go in and I talk to hospital administration about, you have a John Doe. And I got a phone call saying that it was my son. And they told me what room he was in. And this is what I walked into. Hold on a second. I was able to confirm that that was my child. And when I asked what happened, I asked how he got there. Did they know what happened? What was wrong? They said that the paramedics were driving through town
and found my son laying in the middle of the road, unresponsive. With nobody around. I asked to see the clothes that he was brought in with because I knew all of Nick's clothes. And they showed me the clothes. But they weren't Nick's. I didn't know whose they were. And they said, well, he's strong. He's a young man. We don't know what's wrong, but we're sure he'll be okay. And he came to for a little while. And I had a business trip scheduled, and this is going to make me sound like the world's shittiest parent. But Nick was unconscious. He didn't know I was there. They said he was going to be okay. So I made the tough decision that I didn't want to. God, I'm the world's worst parent. I didn't want to cancel my business trip. So I went on it and I told the nurses and the doctors, if anything changes, call me immediately. I will be back. I was calling the hospital every 2 hours while I was going, to the point that it interfered with my job. But I needed to know that he was still okay. And on the way home, they said Nick had a perforated lung. That I needed to get home. That he had taken a turn for the worse. So I got home. I was home within a couple of hours. And I was in his hospital room, and I felt like the world's worst parent. But I had faith. They said he was going to be okay. He was unconscious. He didn't know I was there. So the next couple of days were touch and go. They put in a chest tube. And this man walks in Nick's room, somebody I'd never seen. And I thought I knew all of Nick's friends. And he said, I'm glad he's still holding on, but there's something you need to know. And I had no idea who this person was. None. And so I was kind of skeptical, and I was like, what? Who are you, first of all? And he told me his name. I was like, oh, okay, I've never seen you, but I have heard Nick mention this person's name. And he said, this wasn't an accident. I said, what do you mean? He said, you need to get a hold of Jerkface and get the messages. And I didn't know what he meant. As I'm sitting there, hoping and praying that Nick is somehow magically going to make it through, this whole ordeal. I contacted Jerkface and I said, I need you to tell me what's going on. He didn't call me. He didn't text me. He sent me this message. Come to later find out this is Nick's killer. And he said, or is he at Archie still? It's in his best interest to stay away from me. That doesn't matter why. But I will kill him if he doesn't. I'm not afraid of you or him. And I'll tell you another thing. If he comes back, then he will kill himself. Overdose the bitch. And I knew that name right away. It was this man right here. So when I seen that, I asked the hospital if they had done a tox screen when Nick was found and brought in. Because they weren't sure what was wrong with him. And they had. Nick was clean from drugs. But he had a wound on his neck that they couldn't figure out. And he had a wound on his hand that they couldn't figure out what it was from. Come find out this jerkbag here is into IV drugs. And he had an old needle. And I don't know what he did with it because he still hasn't said. But he injected something into Nick. Some sort of bacteria. Don't know if it was from the needle or what. And that had taken over Nick's system. And it was attaching itself to his heart. This man made good on his promise to kill my child. So I learned his address because I have access to certain things. So then I got a hold of the ambulance report about where they found Nick in the middle of the street. And it was right in front of this douchebag's home. So I left the hospital room. I immediately called the police department. I sent them the text. They asked if Nick was still alive. And I said, yeah, but I don't know for how long. Because he's not doing good. I gotta get off this douchebag's picture. And they said they would look into it. And then I went off on them because they sure didn't look into it when he was missing. They sure didn't. I didn't feel like they were taking it seriously. And it's my job to protect my child. and I failed. So I went back in to his hospital room, and I spent the night. And the next morning, Nick was no longer responding. He was able to somewhat respond and like squeeze your hand when you ask him to. And the next morning he wasn't. They weren't getting any kind of responses out of him at all. So the doctor came in on the rounds and he said they needed to do some tests. And Nick had had a massive stroke through the night. While I had sat there and watched him and didn't even notice it. He was on life support. I don't know if I would have noticed anything, but I didn't. So they said that I might want to call in my family. And when they had come in and gave us this news, I was on the phone with family. That family immediately drove to the hospital. And there's no sound to this video. This was after we had got the news that he had the massive stroke. And his breathing was off, and I knew it. Even on the ventilator, it wasn't right. And my family member took this video and sent it to her husband. Because we knew something wasn't right with the way he was breathing. And the doctors come in. They told us the next day we were going to decide. We were going to have a meeting at 1 o'clock on whether or not to turn off life support. Because he had no brain function. So I prayed that night, as I had been the whole time, on what the right choice would be. And I had called the sheriff's department back and filled them in. They said that they had talked to Jerkface, and he had given them the name of the man that had hurt Nick. They were trying to find him so that they could talk to him. So the next day at 1 o'clock, right before 1 o'clock, even though he was on life support, his heart rate was going down quickly. His blood pressure was critical. And I knew there was, from a medic standpoint, I knew there was nothing else that could be done. So I chose to turn off life support. They turned off life support at 1:55. And I held Nick in my arms till 1:57, which is his official time of death. And then I continued to hold him for a couple hours because I knew when I left that room that was it. I'd never hold him again. And I got out to the parking garage there at the hospital. And I called the sheriff's department. They said they had located douchebag and had set up an appointment to talk to him about what happened. And I let him know that Nick was no longer alive. This would now be a murder investigation. A couple days later, I received a phone call from the homicide detective that was covering Nick's case. And she told me they had talked to douchebag. And douchebag admitted to stabbing Nick multiple times with a syringe and admitted to hitting Nick and knocking him out before he dragged him outside and left him in the middle of the road in November to die. He hadn't expected the ambulance was going to come upon him. The problem is, even though he said all of that to the detective, she told me, we have to have corroborating evidence. We can't just go by his word. I said, my son being dead isn't enough evidence for you? I didn't understand, and I still don't, how that man was able to walk into a police department and tell a homicide detective what he did and why. Because Nick had seen him unalive somebody else, and they were afraid Nick was going to talk to the cops. That they could not press charges and make them stick for murder. But what they could do is get him for intimidation for the threat, get him for unlawful possession of a syringe, get him for the drug paraphernalia, get him for the drugs. And they would work on getting corroborating evidence to what he said happened to see if they could finish him off with a murder charge. Still waiting for the murder charge, but they at least convicted him on everything else. But he got away with it. Nobody seen him do it. So he got away with it. So when I look at these cases, I have a unique perspective that I come at them from. Because I've been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, don't want to go back. And I didn't think there was anything that would break me worse than watching my baby, because he was my youngest, die in my arms. And on December 7th, he died November 23rd, 2021. On December 7th, I was proven wrong on that theory because I got to watch my living child see his brother in a box and collapse. And there was nothing I could do to make it better. And then we went through having to have him exhumed, to which we had to bury him a second time. All because some douchebag and some jerk face was afraid my son was going to turn him into the cops for unaliving somebody else. So, all of that, now you know why I get emotional about Nick. Now you know why I don't say the whole story. But now you can see where I come from when I look at these cases and why I feel so strongly about them. So I'm gonna take a second here, and then I will come back and talk to you guys in the comments. Okay, see if I can pull myself together here. Thank you, Shar. I'm sorry I had to take breaks, but it's what it is. It's hard to sit here and talk about it, but it's also something that people need to know so that they understand where I'm coming from when I say certain things, if that makes sense. Thank you, Dar. You would have thought, but because he was an adult, because he didn't have any special needs, I mean, he had ADHD and stuff like that, but he wasn't nonverbal autistic or Down syndrome, or our news didn't want to cover it. But they sure covered finding the John Doe in the middle of the street. That was newsworthy. So I guess in the end they did cover him, but they didn't cover him when it mattered. Oh, trust me, I'm smoking several of them right now, Marie. Hey, Root. Hi, Miss Bell. Thank you. It's okay, sure. Thank you. So, as now at this point, I'm going to open it up and just say if you guys have questions about anything, I don't care. Me, my son, some of the cases, why I think of way, anything. Go ahead and ask them why I'm going through chat. And by the time I get there, I might be in a better headspace to actually answer. And thank you, sir. Like I said, it's just something I've talked bits and pieces here and there about Nick and about his case and about what I've been through, but I've never gone over it altogether so people understand and have the background to me, I guess. Nor have I ever felt that I could open up either. Like, it's just not something most people just don't talk about it because they know that it's hard. Exactly. Why not put him in cuffs right that second? And I don't know if I still have that voicemail that she sent me a few days after that. And when she said there's just not enough corroborating evidence, we can't prove it. Call me back. Detective Deity. It's like, really? Or Piety, I think is how it's pronounced. It's weird. It's a weird last name. But I never could understand, and I still don't, because he was found in this person's clothing. He was found outside this person's house. You guys have seen the written proof that he said he was going to do it. And he admitted to it to a homicide detective. So explain to me how that is not enough. And part of me, and the reason I said the pothead would come into this, was one of the reasons the news wouldn't cover it because he was an addict. He was a pothead. And I guess that's on me because when they asked if he had any drug issues, I said, yes, he smoked weed. And the sheriff's department knew that he was a druggie, quote unquote, because they had arrested him for possession of marijuana. As if marijuana justified my child being murdered. I still don't understand, and I probably never will. Thank you. I don't know about strong. I'm sitting here bawling the whole way through it. But that's the point. We never know, like, what people are going through behind the scenes. And I've always followed true crime. I mean, I don't know. Let's see, I remember Susan Smith, John Bonet, OJ, several others. Like, I've always followed true crime, like, ever since I was little. So, I mean, it's always something I've done, but I never really had, like, I never put time into my channel just because I was one of those that would lurk in the bushes and watch and listen. And then because, I think it was because of Delphi, I started going up with Sunny. I think It's either Delphi or Sebastian 1. But that's why I connect with how Seth feels. And like I said, Nick wasn't missing for 11 months or a year or 2 years. Like, that little over a week was hell on me. I couldn't imagine going through it longer than that. And that's why I still check in from time to time with people. Nick was 20 when he died. Give him one for me, Root. The case is not closed. They said that it would never be closed, but they were putting it as inactive unless they found more evidence, and then they would bring charges. Less than a year. By the time it was said and done, and everything went through court, he got about 6 months. It was, well, just over 6 months. So, the day of Nick's funeral, I had been contacted by the sheriff's department that they needed to see the body. And I said, well, we're having his funeral today. I said he's going to be buried in about an hour and a half. And they said then they would exhume his body if they needed to. And they couldn't get to the funeral home. And the funeral home mixed up and put him in the wrong spot to begin with. So it was kind of a 2-for-1 deal when they exhumed him. The sheriff's department needed information and they needed to put him in the right spot. So they kind of did everything all at once. They talked to everybody kind of all at once because we were all there. And then they buried him in the correct spot. Yes. Clothes or fuck faces. I found that out later. I knew they weren't Nick's. It was, I don't know, a month or so after Nick died. I still had the clothes and I just couldn't figure out where they were from because I knew they weren't his. They weren't the right size. Like, they were baggy on me and my baby is tinier than me. So I couldn't figure out where these things come from because, like, he could fit in like one leg just about. I mean, they weren't his. They were way too big. And when I found Fuckface's Facebook, I was scrolling through his pictures because I was admittedly Facebook stalking him, waiting for him to slip up. And I still don't go to that town because I am a concealed carry weapon owner and I go everywhere pretty much armed. And I don't know that I would have the self-control. So I just stay out of town. And if I do have to go to that town, which I had to here a couple months ago, I leave my pew-pew at home because I don't trust myself. But yeah, they were his. They were on him in a picture. To which I promptly took them, put them in his yard. And was standing there yelling at him, daring him to come outside. And of course he didn't. I don't either. I've never been able to answer that. Law enforcement has never been able to answer why he didn't have his own clothes on. Neither fuckface nor douchebag have ever been able to answer that for me. So I don't know. And I've run out of places to look or roads to go down to try to figure that out. So I don't know. So I am going to get off here and collect myself. But now you guys know the whole story, and you guys know I'm a shitty parent. Because I left him there because I thought he would be okay. Time I'll never get back. But now you know the story, so when I'm talking and I say I know what this is like or I know what that's like you understand where I'm coming from. And whether it's your past or mine, our past influences how we think. And going through what I've had to go through does influence the way I look at cases. It influences where I look, what I think, even though sometimes it's outside of the box, because I know that's sometimes how it is. I didn't even ask them. They had the chance. I had those clothes for months. I was in contact with them. If they didn't care, I don't have a whole lot of hope that murder charges will ever be laid because they don't care. Because he had been arrested for pot. I blame myself a lot. Yeah, that was so funny. And so, a couple months after Nick died, I was watching a TV show. I'm one of those people, I record it so I can fast forward through the commercials because commercials irritate me. And it's a show I watch still to this day. I still DVR it. I'd never seen this before, and I had never seen it after. But I was watching a show and I was laughing and I was talking to Nick. And I was like, yep, mom's watching her pornos because it is Chicago Fire. Can't help it. Severide's cute. Can't help myself. But it was kind of Nick and mine and Nick's inside joke that Wednesday nights were mom's Chicago porn nights because I would watch Chicago Fire, then Chicago Med, then Chicago PD. And each one of them, I had a hottie that I absolutely drool over. And this came up, and I thought, I didn't see that right. Like, because I was sitting there talking to him, and I'm like, I didn't see that right. And I rewound the DVR, and I paused it. And I'm like, wow. Because this was on the screen. I have not seen it before. Like I said, I hadn't seen it before. I've not seen it after. And this was just shortly after. Like, it was just a couple months. And this cross in the sky in this video was in the sky. This was taken the day of his funeral as we were walking out of the funeral home. But yeah, he loved to hack my phone, which it wasn't hard to do because he knew all my passwords. He was my butt child. He knew all my passwords. I've got a 22-year-old son in Nova Scotia who is involved in drugs. Very scared for him. My youngest daughter went there and said he is living in a cracker house. So very sad. Yeah, it is. And like I said, I regret saying if you go back, you're choosing them over me. Because it's almost as if I feel like if I would have been more lenient on him having weed, he wouldn't have left. And he wouldn't have been in that situation. It was a sign. Yeah, it was. It was like, wow. And I was shaking, trying to get my phone out and open it up and get a picture because I could not believe what I was seeing on the screen. And like I said, I haven't seen it since. But I mean, you just gotta, I don't know. I thought tough love was the route to go. And I questioned myself all the time whether or not that was right, whether or not that was the right choice. It's a parenting decision that you really just have to make for yourself. You're the one that knows your child best. So, yep, that's kind of how I took it. And then I've had dreams of him and stuff. And then I'm always a skeptic of psychics, but I've been read by two that were truly legit because there is zero way they would have known the things they knew without it coming from him, because there's things that I don't post social media wise. I mean, there's things like they were telling me where I was sitting in my house and what was beside me, right? And there's no way they could have known that at all. Yeah. And you never know when we all have a amount of time and we never know when it's going to run out. So yeah. I'm going to get off here. But now you guys understand a little bit better when I go through these cases, why I look at them the way I do, and know that I'm coming from the experience of it. Thank you for being here. Let me see. I've got so I'm gonna open that. All right, you guys have a good night.
No amount of time will make us stray. We'll keep searching through the darkest day for every soul that's lost or gone. We'll fight until the break of dawn. American justice stands so tall. We won't rest until we found you. For all the lost, both the near and far, you're in our hearts. You're who we are. injustice stands so tall. We won't rest until there is justice for all the lost, both near and far. You're in our hearts. You're who we are. We will continue to pray until you're home to